Early morning. Pacific Ocean. The horizon barely visible. The sea is calm, almost indifferent. Transport ships cut slowly through the water as American soldiers gather along the rails. Some tighten straps, others stare silently ahead. A few try to joke, but their voices don't carry far. In front of them, dark shapes rise from the mist. The islands. Well, here's and crudent. We has sins of right. From a distance, they look harmless, green, still, almost peaceful. Nothing about them suggests what is waiting. Ivrilus. As landing craft lower into the water, engines rumble softly. Orders are shouted, then swallowed by the sound of waves. Helmets are adjusted. Rifles are checked again, even though everyone already knows they're loaded. You can feel the tension settle in. This is the moment before contact. We do this problem. Also, well, most of these men believe they know what will happen next. The beach will be deadly. The jungle will be difficult. The fighting will be intense but understandable. They have trained for this. It mine as in rife. As ramps drop and boots hit sand, reality begins to intrude immediately. The beach is quieter than expected. No massive barrage, no wall of fire, just scattered shots. Confusion, smoke drifting unevenly across the shoreline. Some soldiers move forward cautiously, expecting resistance to erupt at any second. Others feel something worse than fear, uncertainty. Well, reads the Tokos. The first hours pass strangely. Positions that should be defended are empty. Bunkers sit silent. The jungle swallows units within minutes, breaking formations and muffling sound. The island refuses to reveal itself. Well, reads the Tokos. As troops push inland, the heat becomes oppressive. Sweat soaks uniforms. Movement slows. Visibility drops to a few yards. Every shadow looks like a threat. But the enemy remains elusive. Is not weed. This unsettles experienced soldiers. War, even brutal war, usually follows patterns. This does not. Is not weed. By midday, reports begin to contradict each other. Some units encounter fierce resistance. Others meet none at all. Areas bombarded heavily show no signs of enemy presence, yet fire continues from unexpected directions. The island does not behave like a battlefield. Is not weed. As night approaches, unease replaces adrenaline. Soldiers dig in, unsure of what they have actually secured. The jungle is alive with sound, but none of it is human. Somewhere nearby, something moves. Is not weed. The feeling spreads quietly through the ranks. They are not alone on this island, but they are not being fought in the way they expected. Is not weed. This is the first crack in assumption, the realization that the enemy is not positioned where maps say he should be. That resistance is not organized around visible lines. That silence here does not mean safety. Is not weed. As darkness settles, the island seems to close in. Flashlights are used sparingly. Every snapped branch sends hands tightening around rifles. Orders are whispered now. The men wait. Is not weed. And in that waiting, something changes. The understanding that this war will not be fought only with bullets and bombs. It will be fought with patience, with nerves, with endurance. Is not weed. No one knows it yet, but the most shocking discoveries are still ahead. They are not on the beach. They are not in the trees. They are beneath the ground. Friends together are the two musent Alden with an ITeens the not fried as kappa. And once American soldiers uncover what the islands are hiding, the Pacific War will never look the same again. Before the landings, early morning, on board a transport ship. The deck vibrates softly beneath heavy boots. American soldiers lean against railings, staring toward dark shapes on the horizon. From a distance, the islands look quiet, small, contained. Just another objective to be taken and cleared. Briefings had been clear. Heavy resistance near the beaches, bunkers along the shore. Once inland, the fight would break. That was the expectation. Friends together, our find it is, they dire. Most men believed the battle would be short and brutal, but familiar. They had trained for this. They knew how to advance against fixed defenses. Artillery would soften positions. Infantry would move in. The island would fall. Then they would move on. Friends together are the two musent in the Grom. What no briefing truly captured was the nature of the terrain. From the moment boots hit the sand, Assumptions began to crack. Friends together are the two misened in the Grom. The islands were alive in a way maps never showed. Dense jungles swallowed sound. Visibility vanished within a few steps inland. Heat pressed down relentlessly, turning simple movement into exhaustion. Every path felt watched, every shadow suspicious. The land itself resisted. Friends today, well into day, Oath House, as units advanced, something felt off. Resistance was uneven. Some areas were fiercely defended, others were eerily quiet. Positions that should have drawn fire did not. Artillery strikes hit empty ground. The enemy was present, but not where expected. Friends together are the two misened Alden with an 18. This created unease. Soldiers are trained to read the battlefield. Silence usually means something. But here, silence offered no answers, only questions. Into Nistarolo, wind table seas. As the days passed, the pattern repeated. Enemy contact appeared suddenly, then vanished. Fire came from angles that made no sense. Positions thought cleared came alive again hours later. The island refused to behave like a battlefield. Into Nistarolo, wind table seas. Slowly, American troops began to realize they were fighting something unfamiliar. Not a line, not a front, but a space. Into Nistarolo, wind table seas. The terrain was not just cover, it was part of the defense. Hills concealed entrances. Forest floors hid movement. Volcanic rock absorbed explosions that should have shattered positions. The island itself was working against them. Into Nistarolo, wind table seas. This forced a shift in mindset. Clearing ground did not mean securing it. Taking a hill did not mean owning it. Control was temporary, fragile, constantly challenged. Victory became slower, more methodical, more exhausting. Into Nistarolo, wind table seas. Yet even then, most soldiers believed they understood what they were facing. They assumed the enemy was adapting tactically. They did not yet realize the deeper truth. Into Nistarolo, wind table seas. The enemy was not adapting to defeat. He was prepared for it. Into Nistarolo, wind table seas. This realization did not come all at once. It arrived piece by piece. A shot fired from behind a position thought secure. Movement where no one should be. Entrances uncovered where solid ground should have been. Into Nistarolo, wind table seas. The islands were not just battlefields. They were constructed environments designed to absorb loss and continue functioning. Into Nistarolo, wind table seas. By the time the first tunnel was discovered, the shock did not come from its existence alone. It came from what it implied. Is not weighed that the war being fought here was not meant to end quickly, that the enemy had anticipated overwhelming force and planned to survive it. Is not way from metastasis, and that meant something unsettling. The longer the war continued, the more likely American soldiers would find things that did not fit their understanding of how wars were supposed to be fought. Is not way from metastasis about. The islands were not simply objectives to be captured. They were tests of endurance, patience, and psychology. Is not way flights. And once that understanding set in, the meaning of every discovery changed. Because if the enemy had planned for defeat, then the end of the war might not come when anyone expected it to. Is not way flights. That realization sets the stage for the moment that truly shocked American soldiers. The first time they stepped inside a place the war was never meant to reveal. Early 1945. A recently captured Pacific island. Late afternoon, the landing had gone faster than expected. Resistance was light. Gunfire faded quickly. By evening, the island appeared secured. American units moved inland, assuming the worst was already over. That assumption did not last long. Is not way flights. The first discovery is almost accidental. A patrol steps off a narrow path to avoid thick brush. The ground feels different underfoot, hollow. A boot presses down, and the earth gives way slightly. Someone freezes. Another soldier pushes aside leaves. A dark opening stares back. Is not way flights. At first, they think it's a foxhole. Then they realize it goes deeper. Is not way flights. When flashlights cut into the darkness, the beam reveals something no one expected. Not a simple shelter. A tunnel, Itoe, in Re now. As soldiers widen the entrance, the scale becomes clear. The tunnel slopes downward, reinforced with timber, disappearing into the ground. The air rushing out is warm, stale, and unmistakably lived in. This was not abandoned. It had been used. WWII, in WARSPIRE now. Inside, the space opens into chambers, sleeping areas carved into rock, supplies stacked neatly along the walls, cooking equipment still blackened from recent use. This wasn't a hiding spot. It was a system. WWII, in WARSPIRE now. The reaction is immediate and visible. Shock. WWII, in WARSPIRE now. American soldiers had trained for surface combat. They expected bunkers, pillboxes, maybe caves. They did not expect entire underground worlds. WWII, in WARSPIRE now. As more entrances are uncovered, the picture becomes clearer. The island is riddled with tunnels. Some connect to fighting positions. Others lead deep into hillsides, branching into networks that extend far beyond what maps ever suggested. The island was never empty. It was layered. WWII, well and have won? The deeper they explore, the more unsettling the discoveries become. Medical areas set up underground, makeshift hospitals, storage rooms rationed with care, living quarters arranged for long-term survival. This wasn't desperation, it was planning. WWII, well and have won? For many soldiers, this creates a sudden, uncomfortable realization. The enemy had not just been fighting them, he had been waiting them out. WWII, the tunnels explain things that once seemed inexplicable. Why enemy fire continued after positions were destroyed. Why soldiers reappeared days later in areas thought secured. Why silence on the surface never meant safety. The war had been happening beneath their feet the entire time. There is a Never Bay, all those forking. Some discoveries are deeply personal. Photographs pinned to tunnel walls, religious items placed carefully in corners, handwritten notes wrapped in cloth, evidence of lives lived underground, shaped by isolation and belief. There is a Never Bay, onus as well, when Spock's either read by the moment. For American troops, these moments blur the line between enemy and human being, not in a way that excuses the war, but in a way that complicates it. There is a Never, die Notfallens, intentis, intentus spast. The shock is not fear, it is disbelief. There is a Never Bay, all those forking. How could people live like this? For how long? And why continue when the war was clearly turning against them? There is a Never Bay, own harder, weigh those. As night falls, soldiers emerge from tunnel entrances into fading light. The island looks the same as it did before, but it no longer feels the same. There is a Never Bay, all those Falco taking simulated pines. They realize something important. The enemy they are fighting does not measure the war the same way they do. Victory and defeat are not defined by ground taken or positions lost. They are defined by endurance. There is a Never Bay, all those are not parts of, and once that realization sets in, the meaning of the Pacific War begins to change. Because if this is what the enemy has built, then stopping the war may be far more difficult than anyone imagined. There is a Never Bay, all those folking. What American soldiers found on those islands was not just fortifications. It was proof that the war was being fought on a psychological level they had not anticipated. And that realization sets the stage for discoveries even more disturbing than the tunnels themselves. Mid-1945, a newly secured Pacific island. Afternoon heat, the fighting has moved on. Gunfire is distant now, replaced by the sound of boots on dirt and machetes cutting through brush. American patrols advance cautiously, not because they expect resistance, but because they don't know what they'll find. The island looks empty. It isn't. The Yuan will come to me be sing. In well, it's gated. Beneath the jungle floor, entrances appear where no one expected them. Covered with leaves, camouflaged with care, dug deep enough to survive bombardment. When soldiers peer inside, the air is stale and warm, and the tunnels keep going. The Yuans, and heaven may known, pass. What they find inside doesn't match the idea of a defeated enemy. There are sleeping areas, cooking spaces, medical supplies, improvised ventilation systems, entire underground networks designed not for attack, but for survival. Some tunnels stretch for miles. The Yuan, when B of the rating. This forces a realization. The war on these islands was never just fought on the surface. Much of it happened underground. hidden from aircraft, artillery, and maps. The WARSPIRE of the rating. As American units explore deeper, the discoveries become more personal. Handwritten notes, photographs wrapped carefully in cloth, religious items arranged neatly in corners. Evidence that people lived here for months, sometimes years, cut off from the outside world. This was not chaos. It was routine. The WARSPIRE, with tumors, with hand, in several locations. Soldiers find signs that resistance continued long after battles were declared over. Empty ration containers dated weeks after supposed victories. Weapons cleaned and stored, ready to be used again. The war did not end all at once. It faded unevenly. The WARSPIRE, with tumors, with hind intestines. Some encounters are brief and shocking. Small groups emerge suddenly from hidden entrances, gaunt and exhausted, still armed, still uncertain whether the fighting has truly ended. Others are discovered only after accidental contact voices echoing where no one expected life. They was, and Waddingbig spliced reddened. These moments leave a lasting impression, not because of danger, but because of what they reveal. He was reported, then's about he called, humbering from my thing. American soldiers begin to understand that many of the people they were fighting had been conditioned to expect no end except death. That surrender was not just discouraged, it was psychologically erased as an option. The tunnels were not just defenses. They were refuges from a reality that had become impossible to face. He was reported, then's about he called, humbering from my thing. The deeper the discoveries go, the more unsettling they become. Underground hospitals built to operate without light, storage rooms carefully rationed, living quarters designed to last indefinitely. This was preparation for a war without victory, only continuation. He was reported, then's about he called, humbering from my thing. For many Americans, this changes how they view the conflict. The enemy was not always charging forward. Often, it was waiting, enduring, holding on to belief long after hope was gone. He was reported, then's about he called, humbering from my thing. These discoveries challenge simple narratives of victory and defeat, because what was uncovered on these islands suggests something harder to accept, that the war was not just fought with weapons, but with identity, fear, and belief. And those things do not disappear when territory changes hands. He was reported, then's about he called, humbering from my thing. By the time patrols finish their searches, the islands feel heavier than before, not because of danger, but because of understanding. He was reported, then's about he called, humbering from my thing. The Pacific had hidden a different kind of battlefield, one that lingered beneath the surface, shaping how the war continued even after it was already lost. And that realization prepares American soldiers for the most disturbing discovery of all. Not what was built underground, but what remained inside the people who lived there. Late 1945. A small Pacific island. Morning. The jungle has already begun to reclaim the ground. Vines creep over abandoned bunkers. Leaves gather inside collapsed tunnels. What was once a battlefield now feels strangely ordinary, almost peaceful. If you don't look too closely, American soldiers move through the area slowly, no longer searching for enemies. They are searching for understanding. In Holber's eyes it was not with right. What they found on these islands did not end when the fighting stopped. It stayed with them. In Holber's enter rose. In life, hidden caves still contained personal belongings, letters never sent, cooking tools carefully stored, makeshift altars, evidence of lives that continued underground long after surface battles had passed. These were not positions built to win. They were built to endure. In Holber's of Lode, with an Hezek guesting the blows, many soldiers realized something unsettling. The enemy they had been fighting was not always where they expected. Sometimes, the most intense part of the war had been invisible, happening below their feet, out of sight, out of reach, sustained by fear, belief, and isolation. In Holber's Enter the Crime with Maid in Destoon, in some places, Japanese holdouts were discovered months later. Some did not even know the war was over. Others knew but did not believe it. For them, surrender was not a military act. It was a psychological impossibility. In Holber's eyes it was not tolerated. This forced American soldiers to confront a difficult truth. Victory on paper did not immediately end the war in the human sense. The conflict lingered in tunnels, in forests, in mines shaped by years of conditioning. In Horber's eyes, it was not tolerated. For many Americans, this was the most disturbing discovery of all. That war does not always end when weapons fall silent. It ends when people are finally able to accept that it has ended. This is always not France the cowlentations passlows to bruise. Walking through abandoned island positions, soldiers described an unexpected emotion. Not triumph, but unease. This is always not France the cowlentations passlows to bruise. These places were reminders of how far human beings can adapt to suffering, and how difficult it can be to let go of the beliefs that kept them alive. The islands were quiet now, but they did not feel empty. This is always not France the cowlentations passlows to bruise. Years later, veterans would still speak about these discoveries, not as trophies, but as warnings. This is always not France the cowlentations passlows to bruise. The Pacific Islands revealed something the war itself could not fully explain, that beneath strategies, orders, and battles, war reshapes how people think, endure, and survive. And once that transformation happens, it does not disappear easily. This is always not fall. What American soldiers found on those islands was not just enemy defenses. They found the long shadow of a war that refused to end cleanly. This is always not fall, and that may be the most unsettling discovery of all. Because it reminds us that the true cost of war is not only measured in battles won or lost, but in what remains, long after the fighting stops.